We really want to bring to the community expertise and content that is relevant to you, that is helpful, brings the latest science and what's happening in health and wellness. And tonight we're focusing on sports performance, which is always a treat. This is, of course, the proudest thing is that we have within our own community of world experts on sports performance. And so tonight, I'll introduce Dr. Max Testa, who may not need any introduction, but I need to say a few words. First of all, it's really an honor to introduce Max. To be completely truthful, it's even a greater honor to work with Max every day. He is truly a brilliant and talented physician and great fun as well. So without further ado, we'll start tonight's presentation titled, as you see, Sports Performance for the Aging Athlete, or as someone said, maybe sports performance for the aging athlete. We'll see where Max takes it. But again, welcome, and we look forward to seeing you at future presentations, but you'll certainly enjoy this evening. Here you go, Max.
Thank you, Kelly. Dr. Woodward is too nice. I'm lucky to work with him because I'm learning a lot working with a doctor with such experience in preventive medicine and lifestyle medicine. So thank you for the introduction. I want to thank State Park City. I saw Jason walking here right now. Thank you, Jason, for organizing tonight. And also want to thank the Live Well program and the hospital for hosting us. So this is I didn't pick up the title, actually. I feel a little, not in difficulty, but it's not so easy to talk about sport performance for aging athletes in this community where probably we have the fastest aging athletes in all the country. Because if you're a good athlete anywhere else, you're just an average athlete in Park City, independently of the age. So aging is a relative concept, because everybody's aging, even the juniors are aging. And I have athletes, I work with a pro team that are 27, 28, they start to worry about it. I'm almost at the end of my career, 28, 29, and 30 is seen like a... And then, you have example of professional athletes that win the Tour de France in their late 30s or early 40s. So, aging, as I said, is a relative concept. There are a few facts about aging that, we cannot forget. So aging is a physiological and inevitable process that happens not just to humans, but to all the living beings. And, there are different theories in aging. I'm going to mention a few, but I'm not an aging expert. I'm talking about performance in a certain age group. So aging doesn't help performance because nobody will tell you that 60 you're faster than 20. But the effect of aging can be mitigated by using some strategy, and we'll see some of those. Not everybody ages at the same rate, and we don't lose physical performance quality at the same rate and for the same kind of sport modality, exercise modalities. So some of the factors involve your genetics, the environment. If you live in a healthy environment like Park City, probably in your 60s or 70s, you're more motivated to run it if you live in downtown Milan, Italy. And so the environment is definitely a big factor. Also, for the pollution and other contributing factor to your health. And then lifestyle, because to be performing well, particularly above age 50 or 60, you need to be as healthy as you can. So lifestyle impacts your health, and health impacts your performance. Matter of fact, over age 65, your general health is probably the strongest predictor of your performance. Because if you could be the fittest guy from a cardiovascular standpoint, but if you have bad knees or bad back, you can train as much, and maybe someone with less VO2 max or cardiovascular fitness can train more because they have better joints. So keep an eye on lifestyle. And with aging, normally, we reduce physical activity. All the mammals, not just humans, they tend to move less. And we don't know if we lose performance with aging because we move less, or the two things are independent. Because there are studies that can show that people that move actually in a later age as much as we're doing in younger age, they tend to age at a different pace. So there's both factors can contribute. the loss of performance is a combination of loss of different physiological qualities. So we'll see later some of these, like muscle mass versus cardiovascular performance, heart performance, lung performance. So every one of us is a little bit of a puzzle. So some people tend to lose pulmonary function quicker than others, but they maintain the cardiovascular performance a little more. And so, interesting, most of the changes that happen in the body, in the human physiology with aging, are exactly the same that happen with detraining. So detraining is equal to aging, and training is equal to stay younger, basically. So I don't want to go over all this theory, but there are many theories about why we get older, and not just humans. And some of the theories have more solid science behind. There are some theories that think that we should be immortal, we should live forever. And actually, we developed in a way to live forever, but then kind of was an adaptation. Live forever is not good because the herd on the planet would be overpopulated. So we developed the ability to program some aging and eventually death just to save the planet. I'm not a believer, but this is a theory. So we don't go over that, but it's a couple. We don't understand much of aging. The day we understand more, we can probably also address some of the issue better. So this is the physiological state of aging. And when I look at that, I was feeling really bad because it's pretty mean, but that is what aging is from a physiological standpoint. So your young adulthood is between age 20 and 35. And that for most sport corresponds to the peak performance. If you take Olympic athletes, pretty much they're young adults. So they're in that age group. Then you have what is called young middle age, 35, 45. For me personally, that is still young age, but that is young middle age. And that is where performance could be stable. And in some sport, actually, you can peak in that group. For example, golf. And even curling. It's true, because aging helps, neuromuscular control to a point, strategy, you understand yourself and the game better. So 35, 45 is still a good age to have performance in some sport at world level. Then there is a later middle age, 45, 65. This is the age in which everything is driven mainly by hormonal changes in both males and females. And so we'll see later that at that point, something changes in the curve of performance. Then there is an early old age, 65, 75, and that is unfortunate. There's a little steeper decline. I'm afraid of that because I'm already slow, even if I'm not in that group yet. So I'm checking every day that things are working. And then you have the middle old age, 75, 85, in which actually health is the key factor. So that's why it's very important to try to keep an eye on your health. As I said, there is a wide inter-individual difference. So chronological and biological age, not the same for all the subjects, they don't measure the same way. So peak performance, as I said, for most disciplines is in the 20s and the 30s. Is peak performance, which is just for purely information, is not the purpose today to talk about world championship in your 60s or 70s, but the best athletes normally tend to have a combination of lucky genetic makeup, so they pick the right parents, like they say, and they grow in a good environment physically and psychological environment, and they have good access to training facility, good coaching, and so on. So to be a world champion in sport, you need a combination of things that sometimes are not under your control. And the reason these people can perform to that top level is because they develop different adaptations to the physical and mental stress that sometimes takes 10 years to develop. And those means adaptation at muscular level, cardiac level, lung level, and so on. This ability to have this performance and to decrease with age, as we said. And this is a graph that shows some trend in the running performances. On the left is sprinting, and the right side is more endurance, is a 10K, so kind of aerobic capacity effort. And you can see that there is, on the curve on the left, There is a change in speed, so people start to get slower from a certain steepness to a steeper part of the curve. For women around 50, for most women correspond to the menopause changes, so there is less hormonal support to training adaptations. And for men around 65, mid-60s, that normally is the andropause, so when most of the males start to have a decrease in testosterone. Even in some people start to have decrease in testosterone way earlier. But these in top athletes, normally you see these are the 2 points. In endurance sport on the right, you see that the different age is not so evident, because in endurance there are other factors where actually women have physiological adaptation that could be better to tolerate longer effort. So in the longer distance, you don't see this big gap in age changes. And then in the next one, I show you actually the world record for marathon. This is probably 5 years ago. And then you can see that even with aging, you can see that the times are getting slower to the right. But you see that you've got guys that are age 80, they can still run a 4-hour marathon, which is much faster than a 25-year-old that doesn't really train for it. So the good news is that training can compensate for age. In general, if you look at running performance with age, you can expect to lose 1% of your performance every year between age 30 and 55, 60. And maybe after that, 2% every year. That in people that train could be higher if you don't train. In swimming, actually the loss of performance start later for both women and men. And the reason is because in some of the changes that come with age help you in the swimming pool, because you tend to lose some muscle mass, but you gain fat mass, which normally is not a good thing, but is good in the water because you float better, so you can swim faster. So some of the aging adaptation slow down the decay in the performance in the water. This is cycling, this is a cycling club meeting, so this is more what we actually care about. Cycling performance peak also in 25, 35 age, not so much before 25. In other sport you can have a peak performance in the late teens, but in cycling you need to have a certain development of the muscle, specificity of the movement control, understanding of the strategy of the pacing. So most of the top athletes are normally in the late 20s. The drop is actually less than running, 0.6, 0.7% every year for effort between 20 and 40 kilometers time trial. It's a pretty good way to measure your fitness level as a cyclist. The reason why this is a little better than running, maybe not as good as swimming, is because in running a lot of the components that make you a good runner are plyometric or elastic component, rebound component, and you tend to lose that with aging. In cycling, there is no elastic component. It's all concentric muscle contraction. So basically, run as young, bike most of your life, eventually swim again. You can do all three and be a triathlete, that's fine. But if you look with aging, cycling is kind of the sport that takes you probably for a big part of your life because there's less side effect. Muscle strength also decreases with age. You can see that in this graphic, there's kind of a linear correlation with the loss of combined lift. With age, you can see that goes down. But actually, other studies have been looking more specifically to specific muscle groups. They also show a change in speed of the loss of strength around age 55 to 70 in people that don't train much. And that is in support of training. So on the left side, you see how important it is to be able to have some good strength on your leg, because, for example, the maximal leg strength is one of the factors that allow you to stand from a chair. If you have a certain amount of strength, you can stand fast. If you have less strength, you can still lift your weight, but slowly. If you don't have this minimum level of strength, you cannot lift by yourself. You need help or use your arms or whatever. So it's very important to maintain the strength of your lower extremity for activity of daily living, like we say. So that is a curve that looks at the strength of they measure the knee strength with the isokinetic test. And you can see that the blue line is the loss of strength in, these are men with age, and the red one is untrained soldier. So you can see that an 8-year-old man, well-trained, can have more strength than a 20 or a 30-year-old that doesn't train. So the gap, the benefit that comes from training goes through over a few decade of aging. I have my father-in-law here that is only much younger than those guys, but can still be stronger than my son that is 25 because he's been lifting all his life. That's why I want to say this nice thing to him. All right, so target of aging. Heart and arteries. We'll see a little bit which kind of changes. Lungs, blood, hormones, muscle, brain and nerves, bones and telomeres are tails on the chromosome that determine how fast you age. So when you age, all these things get impacted, unfortunately not in a good way. These are the target of training. They're exactly the same. So the effect of training are exactly the same target of aging, right? So basically nature wants us to train to fight the changes that are induced by aging. They're exactly the same. So these are some of the changes in the heart that happen when you're getting older. You got this accumulation of what we call aging pigment, lipofuscin, and accumulates in the muscle, in the cardiac muscle, and has some effect on the function of the muscle. The valve of the heart gets thicker, and so becomes stiffer. And so that can have an effect on the way the blood goes through and out of the heart. The number of the pacemaker cells in the upper chamber, in the atria, the one that determine how fast you can discharge and activate the heart contraction, become less prevalent because you got some fibrotic changes in the heart and some fatty deposition. So maybe that your pacemaker gets a little slower. Sometimes get too slow, and so people need a pacemaker because they get dizzy in resting condition. The heart is too low, but also limit the ability to go high with your heart during exercise. To contribute to this lack of maximal heart rate raise, that is one of the things that we see when comparing what you were able to do in your 20s and in your 50s. That you see the heart, oh, I was able to stay at 200 beats for a long time. Now I have to push hard to go to 150. It's also the fact that in the lower chambers of the ventricle, that is the chamber that is pushing the muscle, so that most of the pushing the blood, the part of the heart that does the most work during physical activity, there's some receptor for stress hormones that activate your heart rate, and we call those beta receptors, and they become less sensitive to the stress of physical activity, so your heart rate doesn't respond that well. So we tend to have a slower heart rate with age, both in resting and peak effort or submaximal effort. Heart tend to get a little bigger, particularly get a little thicker. And thicker is not necessarily good because you got more muscle for the blood supply, so relatively you have less oxygen for a bigger muscle. And the thicker muscle normally is a little stiffer and expanding. It still expand pretty well. Matter of fact, older athletes during exercise, they expand their ventricle more. They try to use more ventricle because the stretch of the ventricle gives you strength to compensate for the loss of contractile component. But that can put some strain on the heart itself. So because of all these factors combined, the stroke volume, so how much blood the heart can pump for each beat, it comes down. So if you have a pump that is pushing a little less every beat, and you have less beat, you can understand that in the whole time, the whole minute, for example, you push much less blood. So when we're testing this cardiac output in athletes at the Sport Institute in Milan, and we see the top athlete can pump 35, 40 liters of blood, and blood carries oxygen, so the oxygen goes along with the amount of blood a minute, so 35, 40 liters, while in a normal person can push maybe 18 liters, so the double. And so it's very important that with age you maintain a little bit of high heart rate, a little bit of strength in your, and that comes with training. And then eventually later we can talk about the the potential changes in the heart of older athletes that, probably you guys read about on the media in the last year or so, warning athletes not to train too much and so. So the heart fills up more slowly, and because of that, you actually need more work from the upper chamber, the atria. So the atria has to work more in older athletes. That's why some people go into AFib. There are many components, but one is that when the heart is in need of help, start to overload the atria, so that can trigger problems. So these are changes in the heart. In the lung, the exchange between of oxygen and carbon dioxide happen in the alveoli, the little sacs that make in contact the air you breathe with the blood that goes through the body. The number of the ones that really work decreases, and they become a little stiffer too. So in general, the whole lung is losing elasticity. So we tend to lose the ability to squeeze out air. We can inflate the lungs, but not to squeeze out as well as we do when you're younger. So at the end of a maximum expiratory effort, whatever is left in there, it's called residual volume, tend to go up when you get older. That unfortunately is not very good, because if you have a bunch of air sitting in your lung that doesn't contribute, you just dilute the oxygen in there, so you waste energy. Try to fill up this empty space with more oxygen. So that's why respiratory muscle training is so important and is very much underestimated. The forced respiratory velocity in 1 second. So when we do a pulmonary function test, you measure how fast, not only how much you can breathe in and out, but how fast you can do it. And we measure how much you can exhale in 1 second. Is a good predictor of how good your lungs are. And we tend to lose 30 milliliters every year in our adult life, because the lung is getting stiffer, it cannot squeeze as much as you can do when you're young. So the total amount of air that you can carry and use when you exercise drops around 20%. And the residual volume, unfortunately, increases by 50%. So this is measurement of VO2 max on different age groups. So VO2 max, probably here most of the people know what the VO2 max is considered the gold standard measure to see how fit your cardiopulmonary system is. So we measure how much oxygen you can use, or would be like measure how much fuel a car can use in a minute and maximum effort. So if you can use more oxygen, it means that you can produce more energy. So a normal physiological number for an average person is 25 to 38 milliliters of oxygen per minute. When you're young, you're a little higher, then you tend to lose. So that is normally active men, so not people that train, just people that have a job, that walk around and move, but not people that do what is called sport performance training. So the average around age 25 is 47, 35, you don't lose much. As in 10 years, you lose 9%. Then in the next 10 years, you start to lose more, 17%. Then you go down 52, your VO2 max for 47 is now at 38. So you see that there is a kind of a continuum in the loss of them. But, and this is a different age group. So it's similar to the muscle graphic I showed before. This is showing the VO2 max changes with aging in 4 different groups. The top group, they start with the very high VO2 max 70. These are people that train all their life. And you can see that even when they're 70, they have a VO2 max above 45, that is the normal for a 25-year-old. So a 70-year-old, well-trained endurance athlete has higher performance, cardiopulmonary performance, than an untrained 25-year-old. The untrained are the people at the bottom, the black line. Then on top, from the red line, you have 2 groups, 2 lines that come down. One blue comes down, but comes and then plateau. And these are the people that stop training for racing, but they still training. So you can see they pretty much go back and they match the intermediate line that are the recreational athletes that never train too much, but they always been training some. And then you have the ones that, the line that drops from the top very steep. These are the people that were very good athletes till age 30, professional athletes, and then become sedentary. And you can see that the fact that they were great athletes in their 30s and pretty much them for 15, 20 years, but by age 60, they're very close to the people that never exercise. So the fact that you're being a top athlete in your 20s or 30s give you a little bit of an advantage, but it's not forever. So unfortunately, those benefits are great, but they're reversible if you don't keep using your cardiopulmonary system. So the muscle, you know, everybody heard about sarcopenia. Sarcopenia means loss of muscle tissue. And so we lose muscle mass and the strength, because the strength goes along with the muscle mass. And this happens with age, particularly, you know, the loss is triggered by the decrease of some hormones, mainly testosterone and growth hormone, that tend to go down, you know, in your 50s, your 60s. But, you know, as I said, some of the studies are questioning this and say maybe it's more important the lack of use that happened in that age group than the fact that testosterone is low. So when you have lost, when you lose muscle mass, that muscle mass the space get taken over by fat. And fat is not really great for metabolism, doesn't do much. It's just weight that you carry. And that's slowing down also your metabolism, increase the risk of some medical condition like the metabolic syndrome, in which, you know, you tend to have problems that eventually can trigger diabetes, like type 2 diabetes, or cardiovascular, increase your cardiovascular risk. Because you're weaker, you're more fatigued, and you have also increased risk of falling, because you don't have strong legs, you don't have strong body. And sarcopenia, so the loss of muscle mass, affects all the muscle, including the respiratory muscle, but also the smooth muscle that we have that control some function, like bowel movement. So people tend to get a little constipated when they get older. That is one reason. So we need to protect our muscle mass, because muscle mass is going to drive a lot of good or bad things, depending if you keep it or you lose it. I don't know if I put this in this graphic, but particularly we tend to lose the type 2 muscle fibers. So the muscle is a pool of different kinds of fibers. You got fast, you got slow. We lose the fast with aging. And the fast, you know, are the ones that give you the peak strength. That's why strength goes down more with aging, because not only you lose muscle, but you lose the part of the muscle that gives you more strength. But the good news is that, you know, with training, you can transform some of the intermediate fibers in type 2. So when you train and lift weights in later age, you still have to do some maximal effort, because those are important to maintain the peak force. You have to do following a certain progression, but you don't have just to go and do your 15 reps 3 times. But do once a week, do some strengthening. Do like 4 reps and 90–95% of one repetition maximum, because you want to keep also the high quality fibers. And so I'm going to stop this soon, because I don't want to make everybody sad here with all the crying. Then we have a bad one. My wife is already crying because she told me yesterday, don't be negative. I'm not going to be negative. You'll be happy when you leave this room. I have to go through this first. So both tendon ligaments. So we got, you know, some of the things are really, you can see just by looking at people in a certain age compared to the young people. So we lose elasticity in all these structure, both tendon ligaments. Pretty much what happened is all these fibrils, so all the bundles of particularly the collagen, that is the glue of this tissue, they start to stick to each other laterally. They create what we call cross linkages. So if you have a bundle that is able to move and be flexible in one direction, now it's glued, each bundle is glued to each other, it's much harder to move it. So that's why tendon gets stiffer and artery gets stiffer and so on. Bone, we all know about loss of bone mass. Hopefully, ladies that do sport, they know about this. Some sport protect you from bone loss and some other don't. Here in Park City, most of the patients I'm working with, they know their bone density, they do their DEXA scan, or they do their test regularly. It's very important for health. Guys should do the same, especially some if they have some risk factor. In general, we lose water content in the cartilage, so that's another component, another fact that we become chronically more dehydrated getting older. kids have a lot of water in their body, older people have less. That contributes to the loss of elasticity. And that's also one reason why we tend to shrink, because we lose water also in the disc and the spine. So we tend to shrink, to drink every day to stay tall. And then there is loss of water also in the tendon, so that increases the risk of injuries, because the dehydration increases the risk. I got one more slide and then we go to the good news. Neurological changes. So through life we lose brain cells. And we know that we are born with a lot of brain cells, and probably more than what we need. And sometimes having too many is not that good. But with good news that we lose some of them to a point. And unfortunately, there are factors that can speed up that rate of loss of brain cells or neurons. And that could be lifestyle related, addictions or other stuff, injuries and so on. We tend to lose more the gray matter than the white matter. The gray matter is the one where actually the high function happens, the cognitive function. But there is now very strong evidence to get bigger every year. Last year was a big publication in the British Journal of Sport Medicine about the effect of training on the neurogenesis. So you can actually make new cells in the brain, or make cells that are not new working better and taking over cells that don't work anymore, because you increase the connections. And there are many, many reasons for that. It makes a lot of sense from an evolutionary standpoint. There is a correlation with how much you move and how much connection in the brain, how well your brain functions. Because if you are go back millions of years, early phase of development, every time you move, you get exposed to a different environment. You have to make decisions. So movement is triggering brain development. In fact, they say that in human, what made the development of the brain was the movement, the ability to move. So they said that the muscle is what made the brain become a brain. And then there is a study that pretty solid, that go back in the 80s, done at Karolinska Hospital in Sweden on this theory. I always believe that movement is good for everything. But now the evidence is really strong. Probably the brain is one of the main beneficiary of physical activity. And so, already gave you some good news. But, the physiology is that we tend to lose some neurons or brain and nerve cells with aging. The good news, trainability. So, a lot of studies have been done in this area, because the question is, when I'm 60, I start training, I'm sedentary, and I want to start training, maybe I'm wasting time, maybe I'm not going to get better. I got this question almost every day. Good news is that there is solid science to say that actually your ability to improve doesn't change through the year. So you're trainable at 20 like you are at 60. The percentage of improvement is the same. We see for muscle strength, you can improve 20% in 12 weeks. At 20, if you take an untrained 20-year-old, untrained 70-year-old, in 3 months, you can improve 20-25% strength. At the same, clearly, if you're 20 and you live maybe 40 pounds, you improve 20% of 40 pounds. If you're 80 and you live 25 pounds, you improve 20% of 25. But the idea is that relatively to your starting point, the gain in percentage is the same. So this is great. It makes sense in the development that you have to be able to respond to different environment, different demand at any age. Otherwise, you disappear from the planet. Some training effect can reverse the aging effect, particularly VO2 max. So there is a study that showed that 60-year-old untrained in 2 months increased 10 points their VO2 max. So it went from 25.30 to 35.40. That is like gain of 20 years of life. So in 2 months you can gain 10 points of VO2 max if you're untrained. Here is more difficult when you've got the top athlete. They already come, a 60-year-old with 50 VO2 max. To give you an idea, the 60-year-old, if you have 55 plus of VO2 max, you're world level. If you have 50 to 55, you're national level in your sport. Running, cycling, rowing, whatever. And if you are 42 plus, you are state level. So sometimes I have these guys that come, they're 58 of VO2 max, they're 65, they won 3 national championships, and say, what can I do to improve? I mean, to improve from that point up is a lot of extra effort, maybe to gain 1 or 2 points of VO2 max. So there is not much return for the time. But if you are out of shape, that's the best way to be when you start exercising. Out of shape, because you're going to enjoy great improvement. That's my theory. That's why I'm a little resistant to train too much. I'm going to save something for later. So the improvement involved, induced by training both the cardiovascular and the musculoskeletal system, and we'll see a little more about the muscle. But you know, especially for above age 60, 65, lifestyle and health maintenance is the key factor. We say the health and maintenance is actually part of the performance. You cannot be a top athlete if you're unhealthy. You can do it for a short time. So these are just to show, this is improvement of strength in 12 weeks, so 3 months, and you can see that the improvement pretty significant in both. I think this was I don't remember the knee. I think it was the knee. Yeah, both in extension and flexion, and you can see these are older athletes, and they improve around 15-20% in 3 months. 15-20% in the strength of your legs can make a difference between not being able to stand from a chair versus standing pretty easily. Particularly, for example, when you go to the bathroom. I mean, if you cannot stand over here, you can have some help. When you're in the bathroom, probably want to do it by yourself. So in your life, quality, I think, is very important. And these are to show also the effect of training on the neuromuscular function. So this is about quickness in doing simple movement and when they are complex movement. And you see it in the top. So the higher you are in the first graphic, the slower you are. So the untrained older people, you see they're very slow. For that movement that they used to measure took so much time. Then you can down, actually the second group are the young, not trained. And if you go down, you have the old trained, the old athlete, they have actually more quickness than the young, not trained. And then clearly the fastest group are the young athletic, so the ones that are young and trained. But so better be older and trained than be young and not trained. That is pretty much across everything. How to train? So this is another question I got every day. When you're older, and then it depends. Here I gave you some quick points, but it's a little more complex. But you have to focus on the quality of your training. I tend to do that myself. I like to go out for a bike ride if I have a day off. I like to go out for a few hours on my pace to enjoy the ride. That is great mentally, but it's not going to give me much in terms of burning the calories. It's good, but it's not going to make me much fitter, especially if you're older, because as we said, when you're older, you have more slow twitch fibers, so the endurance fibers. So those come already from getting older. You tend to do more than endurance after getting older. So 3-4 hours on a bike at 50% doesn't really give you much in terms of training benefit. You have to do what actually you don't like to do, that is to go hard. So you have to focus on intensity. All the studies show that the intensity is probably the difference between aging in a certain way versus another. They find out that the fittest older athlete, the one that kept intensity through their life, either because they kept racing or because systematically, they do 1 or 2 workouts a week of some intensity. So interval training, that's been the big thing since the 80s, not that I'm discovering now. But now it's been discovered that applies actually better to the older athletes. And you don't have to do too many times. 1 to 3 times a week, and it's enough 20 to 20 minutes, 40 minutes of quality within an hour of workout. Give yourself 20 minutes of intensity once or twice a week. You don't have to combine hard and long. That is the problem. So when, if you read about all the warning for athletes, don't train too much, training is bad for you, athletes have 20% more risk of developing AFib than a non-trained if you're above age 50, correlates a lot with how much you train. And there are many reasons for that to happen. But what they find out that that is limited to the athlete that combine too much training and too much intensity. Doesn't happen to people that train at moderate intensity, doesn't happen to people that train high intensity for short period of times. So what is triggering that is when you strain the heart, that is a muscle, too often and for too much, to a point where the recovery is incomplete before the next workout. The same happens for skeletal muscle. I have a graphic later showing you the recovery time. The main thing that happens between a young and an older athlete is the recovery time. I know 60, 70-year-old cyclists that can ride a 4-hour, 5-hour ride with 20 or 30 years old guys for one day at the same level. Maybe at the end they actually probably better because they know how to drink and how to pace better. But they can do for one day, a week, or maybe 2 times a week. If the same ride happened the next day, the 20, 30-year-old maybe perform at the same level of the first day. The 6-year-old perform maybe 20, 30% less. So the problem when you're older is to do intensity like, sparks on a big plane of your training. Not do always hard and long, because that is not gonna. They say that above a certain point, the dose benefit relationship is not unlimited. So there is a maximum for everybody. It's like, if you put water in a plane, too much is not that good. The same for athletes. Nobody can train unlimited. And that is genetically determined. That's why some athletes can train 20, 25 hours a week, no problem. And other people overtrain with 12 hours a week. Because everybody responds differently. And recovery is multifactorial. It's hormonal, it's mental, there's physiological, there are many physiological reasons. So don't train too hard and too long. Yeah, training those response relation has a limit. And then you have to protect your muscle mass. A lot of studies see that even if you don't train your VO2 max, but you just train strength, so you do, and you increase your muscle mass, that drives also your VO2 max higher. Because the more muscle mass, the more requirement of oxygen. So the heart has to pump more, stay in better shape. And so weightlifting and endurance should combine to a point in a certain age. So protect your muscle mass because it's easy to lose it and not very easy to get it back. And then, there are other, I'm not going to cover the hormonal replacement that in some cases is indicated. Then so you have to focus on recovery. They say, if you train hard, you have to recover harder. And so recovery is a key part of training. And you can differ, in this community, a lot of people like to exercise every day, which is great. I think that if you take a day off once a week, it's better. Even top athletes, when they start to have the rest day, they tend to perform better. But if you don't want to take a day completely off, you do active recovery. So you do something that doesn't stress the same system you have been working out during the week. So if you're a cyclist, you can do a session of yoga, stretching, Pilates, meditation, do whatever you want to do that, keep you feeling good that you're doing something. You go for a walk, you don't have to stay on the couch. So that's called active recovery. Although there is nothing wrong to be on the couch. That's what we tell to the pros, we tell, when you can lay down on the couch, because this guy trains 6 hours a day, the best thing for them is to rest on the couch. So this is an example. So this is a typical curve of why training makes you better. So you train, you expose your body to a training load, like riding bike for 2 hours, lifting weights for 45 minutes. And actually, while you do that, you fatigue, so your performance goes down. So you see those two blue lines that go down. So if this is the performance level you have at the end of training, your performance ability is less because you're fatigued. And when you look at studies that measure indices of fatigue, find out that for the same workout, the young and older athlete, they're not that different. Clearly, the young fatigue a little less because it's more flexible, you got younger heart, younger lungs, but the main difference is the recovery. So what switch of the system from breaking down, that is what happened during training, what we call the catabolic phase, so your stress hormone kicks in, cortisol, epinephrine, norepinephrine, you break down muscle fiber, glycogen storages in muscle. When you stop exercising, there is a reverse. The body rebounds back, releasing anabolic hormone, testosterone, IGF-1, protein. And so that determines the speed. And the speed of recovery is much longer in older adults. So if this guy pretty much, and this gain is called supercompensation, that's why you get better with the training. So if this guy, young guy, does a second training, so this is 24 hours later, that's great. You go down and it comes back. But if 24 hours later, this guy trains again, it's not going to be good. Because he's already in non-recovery phase, so he's going to go into what we call negative adaptation that brings you into overtraining. So overtraining is when you spend too much time here, and then your body shuts down. So in a good physiological response to training, you want to fatigue as much as you can, recover, go up in the weight, comes down from here, go up again, you go higher and higher. But because your recovery time is slower, you need to give yourself more recovery time when you're older. That, I think, is the main factor. I have example over many years of working with athletes. In older athletes, I always saw that the ones that do better at national level, but even at local level, are the ones that know how to rest. And sometimes that is not so easy because you got a job, you got the family and so on, but recovery is the key factor. And probably you know the same. I mean, I can tell that myself. If I go for a workout during the working day, you get much more fatigue for little you do than on Saturday. You sleep an extra hour, you get time to get your breakfast, you go running mid-morning. It's like a different sport because you're more recovered physically and mentally. So recovery is risk of exercise. Actually, there is not much to say besides a few common sense things. In general, risks are much less than benefits, so there is not even comparison. They say you have to be very healthy to be able to afford being sedentary, because being sedentary is the hardest thing for your body. So risk of not exercise much higher than risk for exercise. There are different kinds of risks. Some are subject dependent, others are sport dependent. So some sport have intrinsic risk. If you like to jump off, big buildings, definitely that's more risky than if you like to do yoga. So there's some risk, so you need to match the sport too. And another subject, so if you have a history of heart disease, or a history of lung disease, or a history of injuries, you want to pick up the right sport for you. You don't want to be a ski jumper if you have both knees with 10 surgeries, and you are 50-year-olds. So, and then there are musculoskeletal injuries and medical risks. Medical risks mainly are risks related to heart, because that is the thing that during exercise gets trained the most. And so when you're in a certain age group, say above age 50, you can have underlying medical conditions. Sometimes you don't even know you have them. So that's why they say, you have to be cautious when you start exercising after a long time. That's when we recommended that you talk to your doctor, and maybe the doctor decide if you need to be seen by a specialist or a cardiologist or have some kind of assessment. Because the early phase of training, when you come from not having been training for a long time, actually that is the phase in which a risk of exercise and your risk of cardiac event are higher. Then when you've already been training for a while, the numbers start to go down. The risks start to go down. So you have to understand your own risk factors. Sometimes you can talk with your doctor about that. And then the other thing is not to have a plan that is correct for you, because you don't want to jump in a program that looks very attractive because you see all these people doing it, but you cannot go there. You need to know if that fits you, your health, your level of ability. We see a lot of injury in people that do stuff that are not ready for. You need to learn a skill before developing the training. You cannot jump in a modality of exercise you never did without giving time to yourself to learn the skill, to do the movement properly and so on. So having a training plan that is correctly is very important. That's why you sometimes need to consult with people that have experienced that. And then, if you want to get an assessment and monitor improvement, 50% of people in the United States that start any kind of exercise program drop off in 3 months. And the main reason why they drop off, because they think that they were not improving. The sad part is they actually were improving, but they didn't feel they were improving, because the day-by-day improvement is something that you don't really know, you don't feel. Maybe you feel a little better. So assessment, that's what we do with top athletes. You know, you measure a parameter, like how many watts you can push for 5 minutes, for 20 minutes, or what's your VO2 max. And then they train 3 months, they come back and say, yeah, you improve 8%, 6%, 3%. Oh, I didn't know. They see the number, you get motivated to go better. And when you assess your new level of fitness, you can see where you improved and where you didn't improve, because that can tell you how to modify your training. So monitoring is one way to be successful. In any business, if you run a business, you want to have control of your business. You want to know what is going good and what is going, I'm selling more, but more cost. Same as exercise and training benefits. You put investment in time and money, you want to get a return in fitness. So you have to measure that. So that's what performance medicine does. No, I'm going to take away the question because he said, you know, but no, I will give you a question. What percentage of the 50-year-old US citizen train exercise more than once a week? Yeah, talk about once a week. Probably D already knows, she already laughed. But anyway, it's C. So less than 25% works at least once a week. So it's very, very good. All right, and this was my last slide. So if you have any question, happy to answer if I can. Thank you.
Max, that one of the initial slides, the 45 to 65 age range was primarily hormonal, at least the title was in that. Can you comment on our ability to affect that in different ways?
Yes, so physiological way, for example. In women, the hormonal change is more evident because they lose their period, so they go into menopause. In men, it's not so evident. So in men have a wide range in age in which this happens, actually wider range than women. Women pretty much between age 48, 52, you got the high percentage of women going to menopause. Men, you got guys that go in andropause in their late 40s, other ones in their 80s. There are guys in the 70s still have kids, so can make kids. So that is the physiological level to keep your hormone, talking for males, the best way physiology that I know about is a combination of exercise and proper nutrition. For example, lifting weights in fasting condition boosts your testosterone and growth hormone, almost like if you were getting a shot. So if you want to exercise and you want to gain muscle, the best time for doing that as a guy is doing in the morning before breakfast, before eating food. Because if you start to have elevated glucose in the system, tend to shut down the hormonal response. So lifting weights tend to increase testosterone release in both men and women. Men more because they tend to have higher percentage of testosterone. Then there is a pharmacological thing. Another thing, lifestyle. A lot of drop in hormonal level, particularly in males, is because of stress. I have this all the time. I get guys that come in, they have the blood test. Oh, my testosterone is down so low, I need to start testosterone. Let's take a second, because if you start testosterone, you're 40 or 45, you're going to be on testosterone the rest of your life, because that's going to shut down whatever is left of your production. Sometimes these are athletes, we train 25. I got an example not even a month ago. This was a probably 42-year-old, testosterone way below normal. So he was still functioning. He was feeling tired, but he still had normal sex drive, anything. So yeah, the number is low, but actually you don't have a lot of issues. We went down, this is a triathlon, we went down training from 25 to 12 hours just for 3 weeks. Testosterone rebounded up in the upper normal. You already saw two doctors before, both of them gave him testosterone, start doing testosterone. I mean, probably in the short term, would have been happy, because normally when you take testosterone and you're in your 40s, 50s, you feel great for the first few months, maybe 1 year. Then you don't feel any different, but then you don't have your own anymore, so you have to keep taking the cream or the shot or anything. For female, I don't feel comfortable giving much of tips because, that you go in an area, GYN, that I'm not an expert, and the hormonal changes, but definitely some female athletes that in their 50s or menopause, they tend to do better when they're in some kind of hormonal supplementation. I don't know if there is a natural way to do that, not pharmacological. I don't know if Dr. Woodward can come out with something. But in female athletes, I know that the study in men has been confirmed, has been done, actually started in rats. They said that when the rats had to do resistance training, their testosterone was going up only when they were fasted. They did the same study in humans, the same. So that would be a way to do it. The other factor that I don't know if I mentioned, that not everybody agreed that the decrease in performance is all hormonal. That in that age group, a lot of drop in performance could be more or less related to the changes in the hormones. But some people think that is more related because the training intensity that age group tend to decrease. When you look at how people train, you find out that, particularly after age 40, 45, everybody tend to increase the volume and decrease. They don't, naturally don't like the intensity. It's the opposite when you're young. When you're young, you have to do sprint, not do long stuff. So I think maybe we have to act more as younger people in that age group. But this is the only thing I know. Maybe Dr. Woodward something. Oh, sorry. Yep.
I've heard about free radicals as being bad, and would high-intensity training contribute to more free radicals?
That's true. In fact, one of the theory of aging is the build-up of reactive oxidative species, so the free radicals. Most of the studies we look into that, they also demonstrate that in people that train gradually following the standard rules of training, so progressive increase of the load, the ability of the body to fight the free radical overwhelm the build-up of free radicals. So not everybody, in fact there was a study, they say people with high VO2 max tend to have more oxidative metabolism, so they produce more free radicals. But they find out, for example, Tour de France racers tend to live longer than average people. And the thing is that something happened to a world level athlete, everybody starts saying, oh, sport is dangerous. But that is 1 over a million. But if you look at the big numbers, top athletes tend to live longer in some sports. Cycling is one. Independent of the other factor, potential doping, still Tour de France riders, study has been going on for 2 years, live longer than the peers that didn't exercise. So it's something to know, and you can modify that with the right kind of exercise you do, and maybe focusing better on your diet, so a diet that is not a pro-inflammatory diet, and a diet with a lot of antioxidants. So that could be a way to compensate.
How do I know what training program is right for me? You said that on the slide, because I love to do this and this, and this doesn't mean it's right for me physically.
Yes. So first of all, you need to decide your goals, because there is not a program. I was not precise enough. There is not one program that's best for you, one is best for me, one is best for her. There is, a goal that I want to achieve, could be health. So this is the best program for me. Maybe I have high blood pressure, I have high cholesterol, and I'm overweight. My goal is health. So at that point, the program is based on the fact that you want to lose weight, you want to increase your cardiovascular fitness, and maybe you want to improve your lipid profile. That is one thing. You're a female with type 2 diabetes, probably lifting some weights, that reduces the abdominal fat, which drives down the risk of having type 2 diabetes. So you have to set a goal. If you come here and say, you know what, I want to be the best I can in my age group, doesn't matter the sport. So what we do, we test you, we break down you, we say we do the spectrum of your physical abilities. Measure your VO2 max, 48. You're 75% in your age group. We measure your strength for your legs, 420 pounds, reactive force. You're in the top 3% of the age. Body mass index, 26, so you're a little above average for one. Turn out the best sport for you, rowing. That's what we do in Italy. In Italy, I spent 15 or 20 years of my practice in a sport institute where probably 60% of the work was talent identification or giving the athlete, independent of the age, the best sport for them. So you come, we test, we break your body down in numbers. VO2 max, lung capacity, body mass index, fat, lean mass, fat percentage, reactivity with force plates. And we profile you, we put a number, and then there is a sport that match your quality better. And it is a typical example. There's one of the reasons I went to do what I do. I was a sprinter when I was high school. In Italy, you know, they're not very fast, so you can feel like you're a good sprinter. They're all Caucasians, not very many are fast. They're more endurance. So I got the professor of physiology, there was our physical education professor, had the master in sports science. He spent 5 years to get the master in Russia. He was a European champion in 100, 200 when he was younger, and now he was training sprinters. And he told me this story that then I verified is true. In Monaco Olympics, it was 72 or 76, Russia, Soviet Union time, want to win the 100, 200 meters. There had to be a statement. They want to show that could beat America. America always, the United States always won the sprinting races. Sometimes putting 3 sprinters in the top 3. So they want to show. So 4 years before, they created a database and they went to all the athletes that were around 16, 18 years old. So they would have been 22 for the Olympics. Do a simple test. Now we do more sophisticated with force plate. That time there was a test called Abalakov from the name of the Russian scientist developed. That is the typical reach test. So you can see how high you can go, they mark you are, and then you jump, and they see how much vertical. And if we test people here, you'll see a huge difference. People can go up 6 inches, people can go up 25 inches. That is the strongest predictor of being a sprinter. So they went all around the school, thousands of kids. They found out this guy, Valery Borzov, there was a basketball player in the high school in this country, in the periphery. They said, this is the highest all United States in vertical jump. They brought him back. They knew the model of 100 meters, how much power you have to perform in the 5 seconds, the first 6, 8 steps. You got these reaction forces on the ground. Then you have to accelerate to a certain point and you have to let it go because in 100 meters it's like an equation. If you keep pushing after 40, 50 meters, you actually slow down. So you have to decompress. They trained these kids that never run the 100 meters. The goal was to do 10 seconds on the 100, 20 seconds on the 200. You show up, you won 2 gold. 100 was 100.00 and 20.00. That was a product of sports science. And Valery Borzov won 2 gold. It was a shock for Americans because they didn't expect this guy to come out from nowhere. And so I'm not supporting that kind of idea that you force a guy that maybe want to play basketball to do the 100 meters. But, you know, you can definitely find information that you're surprised that could be change the way you see some kind of activity. I had an example 10 years ago. I was in California, UC with a nice sport performance program. And I see this gentleman, 46-year-old, came for he had a gift certificate from his wife for Christmas to have a VO2 max. And the guy wanted to start to ride a bike because he had bad knees. He was a runner, so I said, you should ride a bike. Gave him a gift certificate for a bike fitting and VO2 max. The guy comes, very nice guy. If you guys saw the movie Forrest Gump, kind of Forrest Gump, very successful in life, what kind of little, very nice guy. First question, you ask him, what's your background? Oh, I play golf. Oh, so great. And I got the scholarship at Stanford for golf. It's great. And did you do any other sport? Yeah, I ran. Oh, yeah, I ran because in the golf you don't really do much, so I was feeling it. So when I was at Stanford, I was running with the running team. Then actually I was pretty good. I was beating them. So weight distance, marathon. Oh, so did you run marathon? Oh yeah, I do a marathon every year. That's why my knees are bad now. I'm 47. How fast you run a marathon? 2:18. So you got the 2:18 marathon. And you got the scholarship for golf. So that's the give the character. So we tested. Never been on a bike. Just check the position. First day in his life that he's on a bike. We do a VO2 max. 62. So we all look at each other, say, "You sure? Check the calibration." That's perfect, 62. In fact, he pushed a lot of watts. Long story short, this guy trained for 6 weeks, and he won national champs, California state champions in the time trial on bike. We had to teach him how to shift because he didn't know how to shift. But, you know, and then he won the national title for 3 years in a row. So he decided that he wanted to do something completely different. But, you know, just to give an example, the guy didn't know that he had this talent. He should have known, because if you can run at 218, but never really put the interest in the other sport that were endurance sport. So you got these examples. You know, we got quite regularly in this, and I'm surprised that people are now more curious about their body. You know, you buy a car, you want to know everything about your car. The engine, and we live a life in the body, we don't know if you have a good VO2 max, a good recoil ability in the joint and muscle. I mean, I think that everybody starting high school, they should have some test to that. If you know what you're driving, I think you can always do better. And you know, and unfortunately, you're a kid, you're 6'8", in high school, everybody wants you to play basketball or volleyball. So your career is going to go there because you have a talent to be told that everybody can see. You have a 78 or 85 of VO2 max that come from a combination of hard lines, quality, chemistry in your muscle. If you don't measure, you don't know. And maybe you tried to become a sprinter and you couldn't really break in, and then you were born to be an endurance athlete. So I think that, you know, the beauty about sport performance is that, you know, it's for everybody. I think that it's basically tell you how your body performs. And I want to know, I see this patient, they buy bike is $11,000. And they know everything. I don't know half of what they know about the bike, this new technology of the frame. You know, this frame, you got this carbon fiber, this the weight of my carbon fiber. I said, wow. And they say, so more or less how much you can push for a climb of 30 minutes. I know clue. So they don't know anything about their body, but they know everything about the bike, the shifting, the weight. You know, I got this new carbon fiber, say 300 grams, $8,000 for 300 grams. That's the way it is, you know. So from my perspective, this is the part that makes my job interesting because you see all these things, you know, that from a scientific standpoint don't make much sense, you know. But so for you could be, you know, try to start with the goal, because the goal is everything. You know, you need to, if you want to go across the desert, you buy a car to go through the desert. So the same is what you want to do with your body, depending on the goal.
Could you speak to the use of anti-inflammatories, just like an older joints and everything, inflamed, and at what point should we not be using those?
So I'm not the expert on this. I think probably Dr. Woodward would be better. But in general, you know, sport temporarily can increase inflammation in your body, depending also on the kind of level. And people can have the ability to maintain the level of inflammation in the body better or not as good as other people. So there's some way to measure the level of inflammation in your body. Normally with a blood test, you can monitor some parameters. And then there's some things that you can do in your lifestyle to reduce this inflammation. Some are, for example, related to the diet. So a diet that is high in fibers, vegetable fruit, no processed food, more organic food, maybe not too many carbohydrates, that tend to be less inflammatory. I don't know if you want to open a... No, maybe if you want to add something. Yeah, then, you know, that could be an easy way. Some activities that are mild to moderate, probably at the beginning, are more recommended than high intensity. Because hopefully what happens is that in that phase you induce changes in your body that make your inflammation wind down, and then on that you can build some inflammation, some fitness, keeping the inflammation in check. Yeah, you know, it's an area where, you know, it's very hard to come out with one way to do it, because the inflammation is not the same thing in different people. It can come from different. We see patients that have high level of inflammation, maybe his own diet. Other people that have a low-grade inflammatory disease. some people have low-grade autoimmune disease. So you need really to, about checking your health first, and when you understand what's going on, then you can decide which kind of exercise is better. I don't know if this is enough to answer your question. I don't recommend to take anti-inflammatory medication for that, because that wouldn't be, no, because anti-inflammatory medications are great for a short time, as far as you don't have a, say, a rheumatic condition. But in average people, if you have an acute injury, take a few days of non-steroid and anti-inflammatory, no problem. But if you're an athlete, you don't want to be on non-steroid or anti-inflammatory for long, because they blind the training response. So there was a study that showed that people were taking ibuprofen for aches and pain before working out. So they took the group of people, one group, they did the same trainings. One group was training with anti-inflammatory, and the other group with nothing. During the training, I remember how many weeks, I think it was 8 or 12 weeks, 2 or 3 months. The group that was an anti-inflammatory was feeling better every day. The score was always higher. But when they test the performance at the end, most of the improvement, the group that didn't take anything improved more. And the reason is that inflammation is one of the messengers in the body that stimulate training adaptation. So they say, don't take anti-inflammatory when you train, take anti-inflammatory when you race. So if you train to build fitness, you want some soreness. The soreness in the muscle tells you that the muscle are receiving the message that they need to get better.
So when you race,
when you race, if you're there and the day of the race you're achy, you can take some, if you don't have upset stomach or anything. But during training, it's better to take anything. Matter of fact, now that is extended way above just anti-inflammatory drugs. They actually say fish oil. Fish oil has some anti-inflammatory effect. They say in athletes, don't give fish oil when they're training. At the training camp, we stopped 3 years ago, based on all this data, to give any supplement for the training camp, because we want the body to get sore, because that is, and apparently they have to say that they feel a difference. So, and I never measure anything like that, but definitely inflammation is one of the messengers for the training adaptation.
Yeah, I'm a ski coach and I ski all the time, still up at Snowbird every day when I can go. That said, I work with my equipment to keep things lined up. I work with hydration, nutrition, core work, and other things to stay good. And the other thing is I have a 9 on a scale of 10 for 2 knee replacements for the guys upstairs. Okay? They said it's as long as you can handle the pain. And hydration is obviously a real key there, and I will use ibuprofen and that stuff too. But recently I did something very different and I'm in shock. Cryotherapy.
What do you do?
Cryotherapy.
Oh, yeah.
This is where they put 250 below degree nitrogen around your body. I did it here a little bit, now I'm doing it down in Salt Lake because they also have an infrared sauna you do after. And I am literally in a state of shock that with the other things that I've done, and I want to emphasize there are a battery of things to be done, I would have pain here and there, and I could feel pain walking down the stairs, and it's on and off. It's grade 2, grade 3, annoying and anything. For the last 2 days, I've been skiing, and I've been skiing with an elite skier, a young gal, and I can't explain it. My legs I don't feel my muscles. Everything's loose. I had absolutely not even a hint of knee irritation today. And I'm not skiing like a maniac, but I'm turning a lot.
So how often you do this cryotherapy?
Well, this week I did my 4th session since last Friday. And then up here, there's one out in Kimball Junction, and over the course of 3 weeks, I bought a week, but I got busy. I did 5 sessions there.
Yeah. No, that's great. So cryotherapy is one of the elements that sometimes get added to rest and good hydration and good nutrition to speed up recovery. Matter of fact, at the Tour de France, for a couple of years, we did the same thing with the athlete. We used first the system to cool down the athlete in an inflatable bed, basically, with the temperature that was controlled. And we find out actually the athletes sleep better when they're exposed to cold, especially before bedtime, or they recover better from muscle soreness if they do it immediately after. Not all the studies are in agreement with that. The Australian Institute of Sport looked into this pretty seriously. They came up first with the fact that, cold is great, Then other studies show that first of all, depending on the kind of cold, that you don't need to get that cold to get some benefit. And so we experiment a little bit, and I have to say, like in most of the thing in sport and exercise, medicine is very much an individual response. So there are people that respond better than others. So the mechanism of cryotherapy, if you want to think about something, is that cold is cooling down, inflammatory response, or actually any kind of increased blood supply to a muscle or a joint or anything that's been used and overused. So by reducing your temperature, you speed up recovery. One of the things they want to have in recovery is to lower your core
Well, that's why I mentioned all the other foundational things I'm going to do, because otherwise it would come across like it's a cure-all. It's not.
Yeah.
But I'm literally in shock. I roll and all sorts of stuff, But, and I'm not, look at me, I'm not like some cycle racer, but the bottom line is, I'm in shock with that addition after the foundation.
Yeah.
What's going
No,
on?
I think that in a sport like skiing, where you have a lot of plyometric, eccentric load, because you absorb impact a lot, so there is probably more damage to the muscle than in a sport like cycling. Probably cold help more than in cycling, for example. In cycling, then they think they give you more benefit into recovery. First, to recover fluid, so hydration, then recover macronutrients, so carbs and protein, to reestablish glycogen content in the muscle, and then eventually other technique. Cold could be one, massage is another one, relaxation
I had
technique.
one of those this week.
Yeah, but in a sport like high intensity, like skiing is high intensity on the muscle. Not so hard in the heart. It's hard, but not so hard like other sports. I can see that working
My
well.
skin temperature was typically 52 to 54. One time it was 48, and today it's 60. But I met a nice girl when I went beforehand. I was talking to her. I had to add that for humor.
Makes sense. No, I mean, listen, cryotherapy, we have a system that we use. We know that cold works very well when you have an injury. So when you have an acute inflammatory response. So in that case, I would say they do a surgery, they give you cold. With the team, we travel with this game-ready thing to pull down joints after they crash or whatever. In chronic inflammatory response induced by training, I think there is an inter-individual difference. Probably in your case, because you already had the surgery in that joint, and you do a sport that tend to cause some kind of muscle damage, micro-tearing of the muscle fiber and so on. Probably is
I had a sore outer shin too because of a boot set up, but it was very sore.
yeah.
But then 2 days later it was fine.
And cold has a numbing effect on the body. So if you put cold on the nerve, you reduce the discharge frequency. So, yeah. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, as we get older, the recovery is so important, and I'm retired now, so I get a good night's sleep and have reduced a lot of the mental stress. But are there different intensities of recover in terms of, like after an intense workout, is a nap better than just relaxing for the next?
The nap is always good. If it's not too long, so I got my approval on the nap anytime. So let's say cycling. I know you're a cyclist, you're competitive, and so if you go out for a long training, like a long day, more volume than intensity, when you come back, the most important thing is water. So if you check your weight, be sure that you know that you recover fluid first, and then you want to recover the glycogen, so the sugar in the muscle you lost. So there are different strategies. Normally you come back, you take a shake with some carbohydrates to wake up your insulin response. That opens the window of the muscle to get sugar in. And then you get some protein. So maybe it's 1 gram per kilo of carbs and half gram of kilo of protein in the shake in the first 30 minutes when you come back. Then you can repeat 2 hours later, or maybe 2 hours later you have a meal. In between that, if you take a nap, I think it's all good. It's all good because during the nap you have a little release of growth hormone. So what are the anabolic hormones that help the recovery phase. You don't want to fall asleep for 3 hours because then you're not going to feel very good. Because then you go too deep into the sleep phase. But a 15 to 20 minutes nap, power nap, after workouts is great. And I tell you, all the athletes will tell you that. They go for a long ride, they come back, they got their shake, then maybe they eat some pasta or something, and then they nap for 20, 30 minutes, they feel great. So that is fine. If you do an intensity workout, so you go out for only an hour and you do heel reps, SFR, so strengthening stuff, so stuff that harden the muscle, or you do sprint. When you come back, probably water is not a big deal. You probably don't need to take with you more than some water, because it's never below an hour. Don't have to worry much about recovering glycogen aggressively. But you may want to do something like cooling down the muscle, maybe sit on a tub with cold water, just cold water from the tub. Stay there for a few minutes. When you start getting cold, you go in a hot shower. You go 2-3 times, calm down the inflammatory response to the muscle. That probably is a better recovery that day. It doesn't have to be the same that when you do 4 hours in 90 degrees. So I think that in the recovery, normally the first phase in general, recovery the fluid, recovery the energy, then worry about inflammatory response, antioxidant. So sometimes with the athlete we give a shake immediately, another shake after 2 hours, and that shake we give antioxidant if it's a race situation. And then, work on the muscle tone. So if you do a sport like skiing that is kind of activated, and maybe you got some sore joint, cold is great. If you have been riding outside, it's cold, and you come home and muscles are tight, go in a hot tub, relax, or just lay down with a blanket, do some stretching, so work more on relaxation. So you have to try to, but recovery has different aspects and different modalities.
I forgot to mention compression wear. I've been wearing high-grade compression wear for several years, and recently, this winter, I added in recovery compression wear, which locates the compression in different areas and adds more.
Yeah.
And boy,
so
has
that
been
is
huge as well.
peristaltic compression.
Huh?
Yeah, peristaltic compression. So they squeeze and then they let go and then they squeeze progressively. That's the most advanced, the one that.
But since I got the recovery stuff to go with it, you have all those little knots and stuff in your legs that go away in a couple hours. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Oh, those are very good too. It's like a massage. You drain the lymphatic tissue, that is the extra fluid that you push into the muscle. When you work out, you squeeze that back into the master system. Yeah.
Touching on the recovery thing, been reading, as everybody I'm sure has over the last couple of years, sleep is more and more and more of an issue in watching it. Any comments on supplements that are safe or tricks to not just get your sleep, but keep your sleep?
Mm-hmm. So the best thing is start with sleep hygiene. So to have a plan about how to sleep, and we have actually therapists here that just consult you about how to sleep without anything. Just changing a little bit your routine when you prepare to go to bed, having, if you travel overseas, how to switch over a few days, the time in which you go to bed, to limit the jet lag, changing the blue light, with whatever equipment you're using before going to bed, not using electronics in the last hour, television, all this kind of thing. Most of the people do fine with them. Then I have people that believe a lot in melatonin. On me, it never worked. But I sleep well even without, so I never had really to worry. But I have athletes that think that melatonin, in Europe, we got the melatonin that is require medical prescription. That is a spray. That looks like is working very well. I recommend for limited time. You don't have to rely on anything long time. You should be able. But the most important thing about sleep is to make sure that you sleep well, and your sleep is a sleep that allows you to recover. Making sure that you don't have a sleep disorder, like sleeping apnea or different kinds of. Because athletes are exposed to that too. Normally you think about someone with sleeping apnea, someone overweight, that actually athletes, because a number of physiological adaptation, they tend to have a difficulty. The brain doesn't remember to breathe enough when you sleep. And so sometimes, that is the main. I have athletes that are in their 20s, they do the Tour de France. Tour de France, they have 2 athletes on CPAP. And they can tell you that their career changed after. And they were in their 20s, 5% body fat, as lean and mean, but they have lived travel. And so all they do, they figure out to address that issue. So
Sorry again, I have a central apnea. I started with 65 incidents an hour. I took a sleep test at home. Then I used a machine. It got me down to 17 an hour over 9 months, and then I did sleep studies here. And then this one puts me down in, 7 or so, and last night it was 1.1. That
And you
stuff's
feel-
huge.
So
I
you
hate to
improved
see-
with it?
Huh?
You improved that since the beginning?
Yeah, but I hate the straps
Yeah, no,
and
that's
machines
okay.
are
Yeah.
a pain in the butt. Yeah. But what a difference.
Yeah, no, sleep is, because sleep is part of recovery, as we said, the recovery is part of training. The first training methodology from the East Block, there was this guy, Harry, was a professor from East Germany, he started to discuss about the structure of training. Number one, the recovery. Volume, intensity, entity, density, frequency. Recovery was the number one, because if you don't have recovery, everything else goes nowhere. All right, thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.